Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are continuing in chapter 42. As we mentioned in the last week, perhaps even the last few weeks, this is indeed a lengthier chapter. And we had quite a few classes on this chapter already, and there will still be quite a few. Indeed, the 42nd chapter is one of the longer chapters in Tanya. We're holding on page Samach. It's about pretty much about halfway into the Perek. You can see it on the corresponding English text as well. We're holding about 2/3 into the page. So the Alter Rebbe speaks about the Yira, which is part and parcel of every single Yid, this fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the reverence a Yid has from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as he explains, this is the Moshe Rabbeinu dynamic which exists and is embedded within every single Yid, which with this Alter Rebbe reconciles the Gemara, which the Gemara quotes the pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu asks from Am Yisrael, what is Hashem asking from you already? Ki im liyiras Hashem, to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seems to be something simple. As the Gemara asks, Ati yira milsa zutra sehi, fear something which is small, which is simple, and the Gemara says, in Lagabe Moshe milsa zutra sehi, that in the face, when you're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, Yira, reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is something zutra, literally means small, simple. But Alter Rebbe asks, and what does really the Gemara mean? Moshe Rabbeinu is not asking about himself, he's asking about Am Yisrael, he's talking to Am Yisrael. So what do I gain that by Moshe Rabbeinu it's milsa zutra sehi, it's something again simple. How does that reconcile this question the Gemara asks, that he's asking from Am Yisrael? And what does really the Gemara mean? It's really not only that Alter Rebbe's question, Alter Rebbe believes that the Gemara meant something over here. Again, you can see it in all the arichas, the question in the very beginning, the way the Alter Rebbe he explains the Gemara and he asks his question on the Gemara, really trying to understand what the Gemara really means. You can see it in the first class of this chapter 42, and as we always mention, that you can see all this class and all the previous classes on the TanyaOnline.com website. You can follow easily the text as you follow the class with the text. As the text is in a separate scroll bar, also easy access to all the previous classes from the very beginning of Tanya, for that matter. So this question over here you can see in the very beginning, the first class of the 42nd chapter. So the Rebbe ultimately explains that in essence every Yid has a Moshe Rabbeinu, has the Moshe Rabbeinu, the part of Moshe Rabbeinu. Every Yid has a microcosmic Moshe Rabbeinu within him. In other words, Moshe imparted with the Das attributed to Moshe Rabbeinu. As the Alter Rebbe explains, Moshe Rabbeinu represents the Das Elyon, the supreme Das of Atzilus, and then he imparts with it, with every single Yid. Hence, every single Yid has this Moshe Rabbeinu within him, and this is what really the Gemara meant. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it's milsa zutra sehi, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu asks the question to Am Yisrael precisely in the style Ma. Ma means to say, what is he asking from you already? Because it's the Gemara doesn't only mean that Moshe Rabbeinu, milsa zutra sehi, that it's small Lagabe Moshe Rabbeinu, but it's simple Lagabe Moshe in Lagabe Moshe Rabbeinu, but it's Lagabe the Moshe Rabbeinu within every single Yid, which Moshe again imparts this Das, this clarity of Elokus. And Alter Rebbe again we explain, no need to recap in detail everything we explained till now. The Das is Elokei Avicha, which is Das Elokei Avicha, rather the choice of the word, the Torah's words, the Torah's choice rather of words when he speaks about Avdei V'Leiv Shalim, emoting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a complete heart, comes only through Das. It's the faculty of Das, not only Bina or Chochma, Tachkim, Tovin. It's the Das Elokei Avicha Avdei V'Leiv Shalim. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is all about. that clarity in Elokus, not only the knowledge, the information. Moshe is about providing the ability for transformation, not only providing information. Moshe Rabbeinu imparts with the das, that clarity he has in Elokus with every single yid. So the Moshe which exists within every single yid, in the face of that Moshe which exists in every single yid, Yira is something simple. Yet, the Alter Rebbe's message, as he goes along, he says, like everything else, the Eibishter established that you want to attain even this which is innate within you, innate and embedded within you, and innate inherent with you. You need Yigia. Everything associated with Avodas Hashem, you need Yigia, you need toil, you need exertion. And for the reasons the Alter Rebbe says, because this Yira, even though again it's part and parcel of every Yid, but nonetheless it is could remain concealed and obscure and so on, just for the reason because the neshama entered into a guf. When you're talking about the neshama divested of body, it's not a big deal, but neshama in the end of the day is invested in body, and the nefesh hamis and so on, and it has its own set of interests, as we all know it very well. And therefore, in order to find that Yira Shamayim, in order to have the Yira Shamayim, which is part and parcel of the Yid, but in order to make it function, bring it into a state of functionality, meaning to say into fruition, one needs to toil, one needs to exert, in other words, to the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe, kful mechupel, yigia rabba v'atzuma, the previous page 118, yigia rabba v'atzuma, kful mechupel, it's a double, a quadruple type of effort in order to extract this yira. And he brings the pasuk into Vakshan kekesav kamatmein techapseno. It's like a treasure. One seeks, one searches, and just like somebody digs for a treasure, he digs it out from the place where it is. But the point is not that he finds it and he says, "Okay, I found it," and I just leave it there where it is. He takes it out of the place where it's hidden, and incorporates it into his life. If it's money, he changes his whole lifestyle. He takes it out. He takes out the treasure, and he incorporates it into his whole lifestyle. As we said, in other words, everything changes because he found that treasure. So too, the Yira Shamayim by a Yid is a treasure which is dug, which is hidden, part and parcel of the neshama experience of the Yid. And as we mentioned, again, we pointed out this, where the Alter Rebbe emphasizes that it's in essence transcendent of time and place, which is a positive, which is a virtuous dimension of this Yira. Similarly, that it's a virtuous dimension when you speak about the neshama, transcendent of time and space. And similarly to when you speak about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is transcendent of time and space. But the point is that the Yid should not only find it or identify it, but incorporate it into his machshava dibur ma'aseh, to make it real and to bring it precisely into the area of time and place, which this is where we live in. This is the reality of the human being. The human being is part of it lives within and is part of the time and place reality, the time and place notion. This is Elam Hazeh. This is where the person lives. And this is the point, to take it from where it is and bring it into, make it real, incorporate it into the area of time and place, meaning to say that it's reflective in a person's thought and speech and action, and just appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Lashon of Rebbe Tzeifu, Mabit, or Makshiv, or Mavin. In other words, once he brings it into the area which is real to him or her, which is the area of Zman and Mokim, time and space, and that is in conjunction with the Machshava Dibur Ma'aseh, which is the time and space. The thought takes time, speech, it's all in the reality. Speech, thought, action, this is in the world of time and space. This is where time and space unfolds, or the Ma'aseh Dibur Machshava unfolds in the area of time and space. Understandably, and in that machshava dibur ma'aseh, that's where he appreciates that elokus, which is part and parcel of that Yiras Hashem experience, and that reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the way it unfolds primarily in the person's thought is that consciousness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Lashon of the Rebbe, which Tseifel Mabit, Lukus, godliness is real, that he appreciates a Lukus in a way that he has the sensation of a Lukus in a way that he knows, he feels how the Eibishter, he identifies with the Eibishter in the most tangible manner, in a way that he has the actual sensation of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is Seifel Mabit Umazin Umakshiv Umevin El Kol Maseh. In other words, it's real to him. It's tangible. Like the concept is not abstract, but to him, Elokus is so real that he feels how the Eibishter, in other words, the reality of Elokus is reflective in his machshava, in his thought, primarily machshava, and again, it leads to Dibur Maisa, but Alter Rebbe speaks of machshava, that to him, Elokus, the fact that God is Seifel Mapid, is not an abstract idea that Eibishter is looking and gazing and listening and hears and understands Kol Masei, all his intricate doings, that the Eibishter examines his intestines, his heart, and Alter Rebbe brings the Lashon of the Razal, our Pirkei Avos, the saying of our sages of blessed memory, Histakel b'shleisha dvarim. Histaklos means to say it's real, like you see a table. No one has to explain you that this is maybe a table, and think about it like a table. You're looking at a table. This is real to you. Similarly, Histakel b'shleisha dvarim ve'eina terei bali de aveda. The Mishnah says, Ayin Roya, you appreciate us as the eye of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, something real. Eizin Shemaz, Hashem's ear is real, that he hears everything, and there's nothing one can conceal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is that taking that Yiras Hashem, which is like, again, this treasure which is hidden in an area which is transcendent of time and space, and incorporating into time and space, into the actual machshava dibur maisa. And again, this is where it counts, thought, speech, and action accordingly. This is where we left off, and Alter Rebbe continues. We're holding the words "Bigam ki ein le dmus haguf." In other words, that even Hashem doesn't have the image of a body. So one would argue and say, yeah, it's real, but it's, if someone's standing here, a physical human being is standing here, and he has a healthy set of eyes, a healthy set of ears, then I know that I can't hide from him. In other words, I'm careful, especially someone who's authoritarian or something. Somebody I have to impress or have to respect, or just follow the rules as he is overlooking me. And then I'm convinced, because again, there's a healthy set of eyes and ears, so it's clear that he sees what I'm doing and he hears what I'm doing. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have ears and doesn't have in other words, saying, and the message of that capital is really this which Alter Rebbe is pointing out in the subsequent words over here. But in the end of the day, it's not, Hashem doesn't have an image. He doesn't have an image, so he doesn't have the physical ears and eyes. So yeah, he knows, but is it exactly like somebody who is standing over me, which it's more than conviction that he sees and hears what I'm doing? So he said, Alter Rebbe says, quite to the contrary. Adrabah, Hakoil Golui V'Yadu Lefonav, everything is known and revealed and known for HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'yesses with greater intensity, with greater clarity, la'ein kates, infinitely greater, miriyas ha'ayin u'shmiyas ha'eizin, from the vision of the eye and the hearing, the audio of someone's ear, al derech mashal. Why so? Because in the end of the day, somebody who is a physical human being standing in front of you and looking at you, and you believe that he can see everything, but because it's from one party to another, you could always get away with it. First of all, the fact that he could only see your external expression, the externality of yourself. Doesn't know what you're thinking, doesn't know what you believe. Even you're behaving appropriately, but maybe it's for show, maybe it's just an external facade. Inside I could be thinking and believing and experiencing a whole sensation which is contrary to what I'm actually doing, and that's the only thing what the other party can see. And if he's wise, he can know a little more, but he can't know till the end because he doesn't know what's going on inside of me. And this is what Al said by Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's Beichen Kleis, where he examines the intestines of the art of the person. Hashem really knows if we're serving Him the way we're meant to serve Him. Because they wish to beichen klois. Well, so that's the first thing. But more than that, even the external dimension of the person, because he is a separate party. He's a separate entity than myself, and therefore, I could always do something which to him it appears one way, but really even externally it's not happening the other way. People could be shrewd, and people could, do certain things which could. This is unfortunately in a world like there's a whole people are swindlers, pickpocketers. They in front of your eyes they could fool you. They could, you think you see everything about them at that moment, but they can do different within a split second, fool you and convince you one way of this that you believe you saw. And the whole simple reason is because it's a different party which is trying to figure out what another party is doing. Another party is talking. And especially when you come to thought, they have no idea what you're thinking. But even what you're doing, which again is external, and speaking, which apparently you can identify with the ears and with your eyes, even they're not 100%. It's just, and the reason again is because it's two separate entities, which one is trying to figure out the other. When it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not another entity. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, who's explained quite a few times. When in the Tanya, especially when the Alter Rebbe brings the famous Rambam, quite a few times in Tanya, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for example, again, not to go into the whole, we explain a little in detail the Lashon of the Rambam, and the Alter Rebbe's message with bringing this Rambam, in other words, by the human being, it's three entities coming together, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on the onset, it's one entity. As an example, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going on in this room. He knows we're all learning together, and we're sitting, but this is a table, and this is a chair, and he knows everything. We believe so, that he knows everything. But is it that he's just looking through the window? But what about if the window is closed, or let's say there's a shade on the window? And what about if the room is closed? So maybe he has dynamic eyes which are able to pierce through the thick walls and look into the room? No, that's not the way the Eibishter knows everything that goes on in this room to its detail. Not that I'm denying that the Eibishter doesn't know all the details. He does. He's God, so certainly he knows everything. But how does he see everything? Because he has dynamic eyes. He's able to see not only what we do, what we speak, but even what we think. Granted. But isn't a way that he's just coming from the outside and looking within, like two parties. One has, a human being is limited in this how much he can see and how much he can hear. But Hashem is God, He's infinite, and therefore He could hear everything and He could see everything. But at the end of the day, it's two parties. He's looking at me from the outside. It doesn't work like that with Hashem. Because, as Alter Rebbe points out again within the message of the Rambam, is because, what does it mean He's looking from outside in? What is giving this in its vitality, its energy? There's nothing outside of the domain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if this room exists, if this table exists, is Hashem, which is constantly vitalizing, vivifying this very reality of this very table, of the human being which sits by the table, of the cup, of the walls, everything is part of the godly reality. Nothing is independent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To say this is an independent entity and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking from outside in, what's He looking at? What is this rather that He's looking at? Does it have any this independence? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at it as an outsider? Nothing is independent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. the fact that this exists, the table exists, because the Eibishter not only gave the ability or created the tree which produced this table, or rather the tree which produced this wood which this table was made, which obviously came from the energy coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but every moment, every moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues to vitalize this very table. And if Hashem pulls back his chayas, it's not the table breaks or crumbles, it just disappears, it doesn't exist. So the very existence, the material of the table is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is not looking from the outside in, this is Him. And therefore, this is Him. So how much does He know about Himself? Everything. Like someone knows about themselves everything. You don't fool another person if you're not ready to fool yourself, meaning to say that you know everything about yourself. One knows everything about himself if he's only real with himself. And when you and Alter Rebbe brings a simple mashal. When, for example, you walk outside, okay, this is in the conduct of man, but Alter Rebbe just speaks about it in a very simple example and sample within the human being. You walk outside and your hand is cold. It's not you found out that your hand is cold, you just made the calculation because of certain weather outside, and then your fingers, you know that it could just tolerate and handle such a climate, but it gets too cold, so it'll start freezing and start hurting you. There's nothing which you don't need to go through that whole process, because you feel exactly your fingers and the coldness which is bothering you, because this is you. And the same thing when someone puts his hand into the fire, it's not a calculation which he makes that because this is hot and my fingers cannot handle this temperature, and therefore that's why probably my fingers are hurting. It's just hurting. But your fingers are down there, or let's say someone's toes. One skater, somebody gave he explained this, for example, so you're sitting in one room and there's a perforation in the wall and your feet come through the other side of the wall. You have no idea what's going on in the other room. And someone takes a little needle and pricks your foot. Nor you see him, nor you see the needle, nor you see your own foot at that time. Because again, it's in another room. But when someone does that, it hurts you and you feel it instantaneously. And the simple reason is because you're not learning of something which is going out of you, going on out of your system. This is your system. It's your foot which has been pricked. And therefore, you need not to, so it's not learning about something because of something else, which there can be clarity in that manner as well, as we mentioned before, that most of the time when we have somebody with a wise person with a healthy vision and healthy audio ears, it could definitely capture pretty much what you're doing, what you're saying, but nonetheless it's another party trying to figure out what's going on with you as a second party, as opposed to when someone pricks your toe, it's not finding out what's going on somewhere else. It's you who is experiencing this, even though you don't see the person, nor the needle, nor your own toe. And the same thing, and therefore, in other words, and therefore that clarity or that tutvei or that hurting is not, it's something which is, it's not something that you found out, it's nothing that you learn as a result of something which transpired, but you know about this because this is you. And therefore, and that level of clarity, there's no comparison of that level of clarity of something which is going on with yourself than finding out what someone else is doing or trying to do to you. Similarly, Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have an image, so he doesn't have eyes, doesn't have ears, but the way he knows about it is because this is him. Whatever transpires, whatever is happening, it's all part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when Hashem knows what you're thinking, what you're doing, and what you're speaking, it's not that he's looking from outside in, even though granted he's God, he knows everything, you can't hide from him, but it's much more than that. He knows this because he knows himself, so he knows everything which goes on within himself, and everything which goes on within this world, including everything which transpires, what's going on in this room, our learning what's going on in this room. He doesn't know it from outside in. This is part of him. The fact that we're able to learn together, the fact that we're able to understand and appreciate word in Torah, the fact that there is this table, we're able to sit over here, the fact that all this exists is because Hashem is giving the chayas, he's giving chayas to the table to exist, to the mind to appreciate this which we're learning, the mouth, the ability to talk. This is all HaKadosh Baruch Hu pumping his own chayas, his own energy into all this, all these different dynamics, which is allowing this class to take place, as an example. So how does he know what's going on? He doesn't know as one party knowing another party, even albeit maybe God, which is different, but nonetheless two separate entities. No, it's not two separate entities. Hashem knows what's going on because he knows himself, so he knows what's going on. And there is 100% clarity. There is no doubt. When someone pricks my toe, I know that it hurts. No one could explain me. No, maybe you're dreaming and no one was in the room, and see in the room and see maybe you're it's an illusion and no one was there, and so I feel the pain. Certainly someone was there with a needle. I felt that prick in my toe. And the same thing when you talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's knowledge, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, that clarity HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with us is something which is 100%. So from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, it's obvious. But this is part of the Yirah Shamayim, or this is the Yirah Shamayim, which I incorporate into my thought, speech, and action, that by me it's clear. The Histakel V'Shleisha Dvarim, not only an hovering knowledge, but it had that clarity, which is predicated on the Das in Elokus, not Chochma Bina, which is about the information, which by definition remains conceptual, abstract, even though I know the information in detail, which that's the point of Bina over Chochma, but it's the Das, it's that clarity in Elokus. And in this case, that clarity, I know that Hashem is here and now. And he sees and he hears, and there's nothing one could hide from Hashem. I am conscious about it. That's that treasure which I took from the area, again, part and parcel of my neshama, which is transcendent of time and place, and I incorporate it into the areas of time and place, meaning that I incorporate into my own neshama, in my own experience rather, my own machshava, my own dibur ma'aseh. It is clear to me that ayin raya v'eizin shemas, the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is here and now, and listens, mazin, makshiv, tzeifem, mabit, mazin, umakshin, umevin al kol maseu, and more so, beichin kol yesod liba, he examines intestines and eyes and heart. So let's see it in the text over here. As he says, Adirabba, kol golav yadul lefanav b'yasser se'ez le'in kates. To the contrary, everything is known to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with greater intensity, and is infinitely greater. Not just a bit more, infinitely more. Much more than the Riyas Ha'ayin, much more than the vision of an eye, Ushmias and Eisen, and the hearing of a physical ear. Al Derech Mashal is an example. Raku Al Derech Mashal, when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Al Derech Mashal is an example. Like man knows and feels on his own. Kol Mashanasa V'nifal. Everything what is going on in all his own 248 limbs, like cold weather or hot or heat. And he says, not only a heat or a burn or a level of heat that one cannot tolerate, his face, which is closer to his nerve system, his mind, or his hands, but more so, his feet. And Alter Rebbe says even the tzipornei raglo, the nails, which are almost lifeless. You cut a nail, it doesn't hurt, because the life and energy which is coming through the nails are so minimal. They're part of, though yet, as much as it's minimal, they're part of the system of the person. It's part of the entire organism of the body. But conversely, it is the life and energy which comes from the nerve system all the way down to the nail is very minimal. So on one hand, it grows because, again, it is part of the body, it's part of the entire the goof. It is part of the whole dynamic of the body, but nonetheless, the chayes is minimal. But that's the reason why when you cut it, it doesn't hurt. But when there is a heat, and when the nail engages, comes in contact with fire, it'll hurt as well. Because in the end of the day, the nail is part of the organism of the body. Halderech mashal nichve ba'ur, if it was burnt in fire. And the entire being, the entire essence of the person, the entire being of the person knows and feels and identifies with. And everything which is impacted by them, in this case, if it's too cold or it's hot and so on, he knows and he feels, he identifies it in his conscious mind. And similar to such a knowledge, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows kol hanifal, everything which is b'chol hanivraim, all this which exists b'chol hanivraim, everything which is created of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in all of creation. Elyonim, the superior created beings, the Tachtainim, and the inferior created beings, supreme, the superior and the inferior. These kulam mishpoim imenis baruch, because everything comes from Him. And from Hashem, everything comes from you. This is what it says in the pasuk. We say Rosh Hashanah because this is what one of the points of Rosh Hashanah, to establish Hashem's reign over entire creation. Because in the end of the day, we proclaim this which inherently exists and is. That everything is ultimately part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what we say. And the pasuk says, "V'gam kol hayitzur leinichad mimecha." Every minute detail within creation is all part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and nothing is out of the domain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kol hayitzur, the smallest detail, is all part of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows, it's not knows something out of himself. It's all part of Hashem, and therefore that knowledge is maximally clear for by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like the Rambam writes, "V'skimu the Chachmei HaKabbalah." The Chachmei, the wise Mekubali, or the Chachmei, the Chachamim of Kabbalah, agreed to this. Like the famous Mekubal, the Ramak, which he writes in his Sefer called the Pardes. Again, identifying with this, with the Rambam writes, should be Dias Atzmai Kaviyachul. Yedei Kol Nivraima. Knowing Hashem knows Himself. By knowing Himself, He knows all the created beings, all the created entities. Which exists, and the only reason why they exist because of the Amita Simotze, because the truth of Hashem's existence. In other words, because of Hashem's true existence, that's the reason why they exist. And with that clarity, the Yid, in other words, that clarity doesn't only exist from Hashem's perspective, but that clarity becomes part and parcel of the conscious mind of the Yid. And needless to mention, reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When the Yid has that clarity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yiras Hashem is more than obvious. If he has that clarity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here and knows everything, and explained last week, today it's easier to identify with this idea. Or there's another, we have something, we have technology. Again, you can see it in the last class. Something which we didn't have in the previous generations, which naturally infinitely different, because in the end of the day, technology is also part of creation, not part of creator, even though creator allowed us, Hashem, the creator, allowed us in this time before Yemei Mashiach. Malahot is Deus Hashem, it's also Hashem imparts His knowledge, which this is without a doubt, this revolution of technology, but in the end, this message over here, that this consciousness of this message is much deeper. But if you'll see the last class, we gave a few examples which we have today, which gives us the ability to appreciate this phenomenon much easier. But when the Yid has that clarity of Elokus, Yiras Hashem, the question is, how can he go on with his day if he appreciates HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sees and is looking and is gazing and is listening and is identifying every move of his, and examines heart and intestines and so on. Yiras Hashem is the natural outcome, and true Yiras Shamayim, true reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, true awe, true fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that comes from the Moshe, which exists within every single Yid. And this is what, again, the Gemara is saying, Magabe Moshe, Milsa Zitr Zutr Suhi, in the face of the Moshe which exists within every single Yid, it's a Milsa, it's something which is small, something which is granted, something which is simple. The only thing is, the Alter Rebbe says we have to be mityageya, we have to exert ourselves to extract it from the area where it is and incorporate it and bring it in to the area of Zman HaMokim, time and place, ultimately reflecting on our machshava, Dibur HaMaisa, in our thoughts, in our speech, and our action, to align it with ultimately with Shulchan Aruch, with the Ratzon Hashem, with this, with the way the Eibishter wants us to live.